And some of those went viral. I mean, relatively viral, like 2,000 likes. And I think that's the first time people started following me and associating me with film and Bitcoin. And I think that was very helpful in getting people to respond to my DMs and take me more seriously. I think that was a very important step. But I got introduced to Jason through a friend, and he was the first person to like the idea and say, look, if you can find someone to do this with you, like, I'll put in money. So I had Jason committed, and he was a huge supporter. And then I got connected to David, my current film partner, and who we co-directed this together later that year. And after that, I was able to then tell investors, I've got this great director and producer to work with me. And that was massive when helping my pitch.
How did you meet David? Like, that's such a crucial inflection point.
Yeah, I didn't know anybody, and I just was kind of networking, but every little person that I did know, I was like talking to everybody that I could. And I was just getting intros to everybody. And we ended up getting introduced through Eugene Jarecki, who David has worked with. And Eugene has done incredible documentaries at the highest level. I got connected to Eugene. Eugene was like, I'm in Berlin and I won't be able to be a part of this, but you need to talk to David. He's the best. And he connected me to David. And from there, we just decided to partner on this. And what was cool is this was David's first introduction to Bitcoin. He had never been into Bitcoin or knew much about it. And so I think that's why the partnership was so great, because I knew too much about Bitcoin and he knew nothing. So we had a really great balance there as co-directors. And now he loves it. It's been really cool to see his journey kind of getting into Bitcoin from the beginning in this production till now. And it's been cool to his experience from beginning to end. And yeah, now he's very passionate about Bitcoin. So it's been pretty cool.
Is there anything that came up in that co-directing where he had an epiphany about Bitcoin, or like you were able to cross the chasm with him of why Bitcoin's so important, or kind of, because the co-directing, it's like you're both trying to pull the script effectively in the film in one direction, and you both have these ideas of what it is in your head. And so not having different beliefs about Bitcoin or different understandings about it must have made it some parts difficult, but also just because you're so passionate about your side of the Bitcoin story. And talk to me more about how that interplay works.
Yeah. No, I mean, you don't see a lot of co-directors because it's very hard, but I think we were lucky that we have a great dynamic in the sense of I am not a documentary expert. He's a documentary expert. And so I think I lean on him to help guide me in this process of making the film, but he leans on me about Bitcoin information and that side of the story because I do know Bitcoin. And so I think we've got a great dynamic where we've got a very strategic division of labor because we both have our strength, and we're lucky that it worked out really well.
That's all that matters. Yeah. So you're directing this film, you're sitting down with people like Michael Saylor, Jack Dorsey, Adam Back. Who surprised you the most when you're having those conversations? And who did your team interview versus maybe you? I know you guys had a lot of people working on this. You didn't get to interview every single person, but talk to me more about those conversations and maybe who surprised you.
I would say one of my favorite interviews was Saylor. And I just remember, one, he was really hard to get. And I did not know if we were going to get him in this film. And I'm telling you, I tried every way possible to get him in this film. And finally it worked. So we went to his interview, and I wouldn't say necessarily surprised at his, Saylor is brilliant and you've seen him on podcasts, but I was just so surprised with how he can sit there. I mean, he sat there for 2 hours during this interview, and just the way that he can just talk. I mean, he doesn't even need breaks. So he just goes for 2 hours straight. And I just cannot believe the stamina and being able to do that. I mean, it was just incredible to watch him in person. You don't see the editing cuts like you do in a podcast, but the way he can sit there and just talk about Bitcoin, and you can just tell that he's so genuinely passionate about it. I think that was really cool. And I remember just after that interview, David and I giving each other a giant hug, oh my gosh, I cannot believe we just got that. That was just so cool. We were both so excited about that interview. Ted Cruz, very generous with his time, very kind, which those people are busy. Scheduling with senators is very hard. And he was surprisingly very generous with his time, which I think is awesome. I think a lot of people, everyone we interviewed, they're very busy people and they're very hard to reach people, but they were all so kind and generous and I think genuinely passionate about the topic. Yeah, so David does all the interviews. We kind of write the questions together and talk about that, and David interviews, and we kind of decided that makes the most sense. When you're interviewing, there's a lot that goes into it, and you have to kind of keep the subject's eye line. You also an issue for me is I know so much about Bitcoin that if a subject says something, I may not be like, oh, well, what do you mean? Or I might just, it's a little bit I know a little bit too much about Bitcoin. And David does a fantastic job. He knows exactly how to interview subjects. There's a lot that goes into it. And we found that system worked the best for us. But yeah, I'm not sure if I know the most surprising. I think what's cool though, like a lot of things we learned along the way, because if you think about it, you're documenting life. And there is a process where I would say we plan to some extent. I remember the first time David and I met, we laid out this giant piece of paper and we wrote out an outline. It's a rough outline, but it's like, this is where we're going to start and this is where we're going to end. These are the people we want to interview and this is where they fit. And as you go on in this process, we have to go back to that drawing board and change things, because as we document life, we get things, or we can't get certain people, or somebody gave us something that we didn't expect to get from them, and then we don't need this other piece. And things change because you are documenting life and you can't plan how that's going to go. And a really cool piece of advice that David gave me in the beginning was, if we set out and we end up making the film that we set out to make, then we're not doing it right. This should change. We should discover new things. And that's exactly what we did. And I think that's really cool. And one of my probably favorite aspects about making documentaries.
And so these themes that you're talking about, I can just imagine like a massive whiteboard effectively, but on paper, and you guys just like drawing stick figures and like little Bitcoin logos and like arrows everywhere. What's the theme themes that go through the film that you want to share with the audience? And then what's a theme that we'll never see because it got cut?
Yeah, man. So we filmed 200 hours of footage and the film is only an hour and 25 minutes. So a
1/20th of everything got cut.
Everything got cut. And that's just how it works. And some films film way more than that, and then they have to cut way more. So it's not easy. And we're lucky we have the best team. I mean, we have the best editors. So what you see when you watch this film is you see the result of incredible people, many incredible people working on this. It's not just David and I. I mean, we have the best people working on this. But I would say kind of the main message we wanted people to see, I think one thing that I've been frustrated about with Bitcoin, not necessarily, it's not Bitcoin's fault, but it's just that Bitcoin has become, I know some people who are like, oh, well, Bitcoin is just kind of this conservative, it's been this conservative thing. I'm like, no, it's not. It's really not. It's really for anybody on any political spectrum. And I think, one theme was just to show that it's very simple, but Bitcoin is for everybody. And I think, you'll see in the film that I think there's things that people will love no matter, what your politics are. And that was kind of the goal. Another thing is, we try to explore all the different ways that Bitcoin is being used. And we're not trying to tell people what Bitcoin's use case is. It's more about showing it and what everyday people are using it for and letting the message speak for itself. And so, I would say right now, I think Bitcoin is something different depending on where you are. And the film really highlights that. And I think it's going to depend. Who knows what Bitcoin's main use case is going to be in 20 years and 30 years. But I think it's definitely going to depend on where you are and what the circumstances are. But, I think something that is very cool too, and I'm not sure how much this is really said in the film, but to me, it's a big takeaway, is that I think one of Bitcoin's most important aspects is not necessarily its number go up or its savings method. It's just that it's brought this movement of financial literacy. And I think that is so important. There's a moment that we have a guy from Harlem that says, he talks about like, how he just one day was like, I don't know what's going on. Like, why is my savings account like this? And why do I not have this much money in savings? And getting into Bitcoin and just kind of his awakening there. And I think that is so powerful, like beyond the number go up, obviously number go up is great. I think that's an important aspect of Bitcoin. I think being able to save your money and hold its value is important. I think transactions are important, but I just think the fact that people are more financially literate today, and to me, that is an important message from the film. And it's not as prominent, but I think it's an important takeaway.
I like how you definitely interweave different like levels of socioeconomic status and beliefs in the film, because you have these people that are Michael Saylor, $75 billion of Bitcoin, and you have someone in Harlem, $100 of Bitcoin, $1,000 of Bitcoin. And be able to show the passion at both levels, where it doesn't matter the amount of Bitcoin you own, but the fact that you can have access to this technology and the benefits it brings you are the same that it brings Michael Saylor is an amazing aspect of the film. I think is underappreciated, but also just something that people don't talk about enough about Bitcoin, the fact that it is like the internet and anyone can access it. So you did a really good job with trying to interweave that, I would say, into the film itself.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's really important because as I talk to other people that I meet that don't know much about Bitcoin and I try and talk to them about it, they're like, oh, well, it's just like so expensive. I'm like, oh, it's not. Like if you know what, I think there is a use case for everybody. I think Bitcoin has so many use cases. It's so valuable in so many different ways. And I think when people can understand the different ways that it can help you in your life or depending on your situation, I think that's important. And I do believe some people say like the price doesn't matter. I do think the price does matter. I think the price going up is important. I think that's a great aspect of Bitcoin, but I think there are so many great aspects that people can use it in their life and they just don't know it yet. So that was kind of the goal is for, I think back to my dad and how he got into Bitcoin because he's like, why am I having such a hard time with this financial system? And then he looked into it and, it changed his mindset and it changed the way he saves money and the way he spends money. And, my dad has done lightning transactions.